In this video, I'm going to expose all the lies that you've heard about the hormone of insulin. And so there's a lot of things on the internet right now that you hear about insulin, how insulin's so bad. And today, I'm going to expose it all. I'm going to lay out the truth about insulin and debunk a lot of things that you heard. I got this from an actual subscriber who commented on a video, wanted to hear more about insulin. And so we're actually going to go through it today together. So a couple things we're going to go through is just a high level overview. What is insulin? The physiological benefits when calories and protein are equated. Higher carb diet versus higher fat diet, keto diets creating insulin resistance, what is carbohydrate metabolism, and key takeaways that you can start utilizing today to start getting lean and getting to that six-pack shredded physique, okay? So, you know, like I always like to do, I like to give you guys some key takeaways, so make sure to stick around to the very end of the video so you guys can understand this concept in full. But today we're gonna break down a lot of the lies that you heard about insulin. So, if you guys don't know me by now, my name's Actionable. I'm an online fat loss professional, and I specialize in metabolic priming, which is a process of metabolism manipulation. So I've worked with over 200 men in the last 6 months from 7 different countries, getting them to elite level body fat compositions. And we've worked with men from all over, typically ages 35 to 65. And, you know, a lot of things do come up about insulin. So I wanted to make an entire video about it today to really help you guys out to understand the whole concept of insulin. And the higher level overview that I want you guys to understand today, first of all, is that low carb, high fat diets have become popular for weight loss and a cure to obesity, right? Within the last 10 years, you know, keto diets, low carb diets, they have become the absolute cure to obesity, weight loss, cholesterol, blood sugar, HIV, I don't know. Like people think that low carb diets are just the end all be all. But the hard truth is when calories and protein are equated, fat loss will occur. When weight loss occurs, all health markers improve. So like all the health markers that your doctors are currently telling you that you need to improve will simply improve with just losing weight. And that's the hard truth, right? And so there's a lot of key concepts doctors will tell you, like, you know, stay away from higher, like white rice, stay away from white carbohydrates. And what that is just putting you in a calorie deficit, right? And so it's a lot easier to tell somebody who doesn't know how to track calories and doesn't know the difference between protein, carbs, and fats to restrict a certain food group and help them lose weight rather than tell them like, hey, eat this much protein, this much carbs, this much fat. They're not going to do that. So low carb diets, it's easier for you to control calories and induce a caloric deficit. So this is a very easy way for simple, no-brain people to just induce a calorie deficit. Just stay away from carbohydrates. They're the devil. But there's a lot of implications that do come from that. And I'm going to explain why when we get to more of the carbohydrate metabolism stuff. But you can eat a high carb diet and lower your blood glucose level over time and become more insulin sensitive through weight loss. And a lot of our clients that have came into the program have done this. They get their bloods done before they get in the program, and then 4 to 6 weeks later they get them done again, and their blood glucose levels have improved, right? So you can lower your blood glucose levels and become more insulin sensitive through weight loss. So if you're eating a very high carb diet and you are still losing weight, your blood glucose levels are still improving, right? So fat loss is what matters. And how fat loss occurs, calories in versus calories out. And that does come to a certain sense when you come into like more of a metabolic purgatory with your metabolism, metabolic adaptation, and XYZ, but we're not getting into that too much right now today. What I want you to understand is insulin in full, right? So insulin is a storage hormone. Yes, insulin increasingly driving fat into adipose tissue. So yes, but the important aspect of insulin is it acts as a key to allow glucose from your blood to enter bloody cells, providing them with energy. Without enough insulin, glucose builds up in the bloodstream, leading to high blood sugar levels, potentially cell complications like diabetes. So people with type 1 diabetes cannot produce insulin, while those with type 2 diabetes may not produce enough in their bodies, not effectively use the insulin they do produce, leading to high blood sugar levels. But you can improve high blood sugar levels by 1, losing weight, and 2, you can improve them with carbohydrates, because we have to understand from a higher level concept that the body is a very adaptive organism. So if you transition the body properly into utilizing carbohydrates, your blood sugar levels will improve, right? But the complications that come with this is that one, most people don't understand there's about a 2 to 3 week transitionary period whenever you transition the body from utilizing carbohydrates. So what most people will do, and why most people get caught in the low carb scheme, in the keto scheme, under 2,000 calories, and they're metabolically adapted and they can't lose weight, is that like they try to add carbohydrates, they gain 10 pounds back because they don't add carbohydrates at a consistent rate in a where the body's transitioning properly. They're gonna gain a bunch of weight. They're like, oh, carbs aren't for me. Carbs are the devil, right? They make me feel like crap, make me feel tired, they make me feel lethargic, they make me bloated. But the reason is because you never actually gave the body a positioning enough to actually transition properly. So there is a 2-week transitionary period within the body that does occur, and that's important to know. But overall, insulin is important. You need insulin to, regulate blood sugar. But the physiological benefits when calories and protein are equated is that, first of all, you need to understand, you do not need insulin to put fat into adipose tissue. You can still gain fat whether insulin is there or not, right? And so I want to bring up an actual key concept where I really want you guys to understand, and it's a study called de novo lipogenesis, which is basically energy contribution to fat loss. And so the higher level concept of this study is shown that carbohydrates actually do not store as body fat, right? And so let's just put into the concept, de novo lipogenesis, and this basically means energy contribution to fat stores. So in particular, we focus on the question of whether or not carbohydrate energy is converted to fat in the liver in humans. A somewhat surprising model of the response to carbohydrate overfeeding emerges from these studies. With a number of implications for metabolic regulation and health and disease, we close by speculating on potential functions of de novo lipogenesis and physiological and pathophysiological. Is storage of surplus carbohydrates energy is not an important function of de novo lipogenesis, okay? So fat carbohydrate overfeeding in humans, different effects on energy stores. Carbohydrate overfeeding produced progressive increases in carbohydrate oxidation and total energy expenditure, result in 75 to 85% of excess energy being stored. Alternatively, fat overfeeding had minimal effects on fat oxidation and total energy expenditure, leading to storage of 90 to 95% of excess energy. So this is when calories are equated at a surplus state, right? So when you are in a surplus state and calories, protein are equated, your body wants to store less body fat, right? With carbohydrates. So keep that in mind because that's very, very important to understand. So consequently, if you are in a higher carb diet and protein calories are equated, the key concept here is lower fat is the key. Because if you're equating calories properly and have a high protein goal and high carb goal, consequently, fat needs to be lower. Where people get into trouble with is that they don't equate carbohydrates and fat, and they overeat and they blame carbohydrates, right? Because keeping in mind, like we mentioned above, it's an easy way to get yourself in a calorie deficit. But let's actually put the two together and understand higher carb diet versus higher fat diet. Yes, if you eat a higher carb diet, you will need insulin to dispose of carbohydrates. But if the high carb diet is producing weight loss, your overall insulin sensitivity will go up. You will improve insulin sensitivity by losing weight. So if you're at a high carb diet and you're still losing weight, your insulin sensitivity will improve. Your blood glucose will improve. If you're eating more dietary fat, you will consequently be forcing fat in adipose tissue regardless of lower levels of insulin. So if you're eating more fat, consequently, your body will be actually wanting to store more fat, right? Because you're eating more fat. And then we get the concept and we get the question, don't you burn more fat when you are eating more fat? Of course, yes, because you're eating more fat, but you're also storing more fat, okay? So with that concept, we need to understand that if you are eating a high-fat, low-carb diet, you are also storing more fat. But yes, you are burning more fat. But regardless of insulin levels, you can still add adipose tissue with dietary fat. So kind of bring this in full circle, I want to actually talk about keto diets because a lot of the guys on my channel, they do have tried the keto diets before. I have too, I understand. But then you kind of get stuck in the low carb scheme where you kind of are stuck kind of spinning your wheels for a never-ending amount of time. Why that is because when we understand low carbohydrates and creating insulin resistance, is remember what I talked about. The body is a very adaptive organism. If you take carbohydrates away, you consequently take a lot of insulin away, yes. But then when you add carbohydrates back, you create insulin resistance because your body's not ready for it. You add a bunch of carbohydrates to the body's like, what is this? All this glucose, doesn't know what to do with it, right? Because the body hasn't transitioned properly. So in this study, low carbohydrate intake correlates with trends of insulin resistance and metabolic acidosis in healthy lean individuals. The discussion, overall findings of the study showed that for the first time, low carbohydrate intake in healthy individuals of normal weight might lead to a dysfunctional glucose homeostasis, increased metabolic acidosis, and a possibly triggering inflammation by C-peptide elevation in plasma. Another study, low carbohydrate diets cause obesity, low carbohydrate diets reverse obesity, a metabolic mechanism resolving the paradox, right? So remember we talked about like low carbohydrate diets promote people being in a caloric deficit, which cures a lot of weight loss, but you put yourself in a position to a never-ending paradox where you create insulin resistance, right? So, in fact, despite the enormous popularity of low-carbohydrate diets such as the Atkins, South Beach zone, and the professional consensus is that low-carbohydrate diets are more likely to produce obesity, reverse obesity. Why that is because if you're eating a keto diet, you're in a carnivore diet, and you could do this for the rest of your life. You think you can do that diet the rest of your life? By all means, rock on. You're gonna be just fine. But a lot of my clients, over the 125 guys that we currently work with, they travel. They like to go out to eat with the wives. They like to go on vacations. They live a very balanced life. And if you're gonna live a balanced life, you can't take a macronutrient away, right? So you need those carbohydrates in there. You need your body to actually utilize carbohydrates and become more insulin sensitive, right? So like, why these diets promote obesity is because you take those carbohydrates away, and then you add those carbohydrates, and you gain 10, 15 pounds right off the bat, right? And then you go back to doing what's always worked for you, what helped you lose the first 30, 40, 50 pounds, but you're just kind of stuck, and you're just kind of stuck in the never-ending paradox. So with that being said, I want to understand the concept of what we use with our clients, and it's called carbohydrate metabolism, right? So the term fat adaptation is a state where the body is utilizing fat and protein as its major fuel source, right? Problem is when you add carbohydrates into that causes very much confusion within the body. The body doesn't know what to do with the glucose. But let's actually break down the two differences, okay? So the difference in fat adaptation, which is a metabolic shift, ketosis, fat adaptation can lead to increased endurance, improved energy levels, potentially easier weight management, like we said, achieving a caloric deficit. But in a fat adaptated state, the body learns to break down and use fat for energy, both from dietary sources and from stored body fat, like we mentioned. When you eat more fat, your body's going to store more fat. But in a carbohydrate metabolism state, right, carbohydrate metabolism, on the other hand, involves the body's use of carbohydrates for energy, primarily through glucose, and is default fuel source for most people, right? So carbohydrates are your default fuel source. So primary fuel source, carbohydrates, particularly glucose, are the body's primary fuel source. Excess glucose stores glycogen. The body breaks down carbohydrates into glucose, which then is used for cells for energy through the process called glycolysis and glycogen. But I want to actually outline the actual importance and the benefits of a carbohydrate metabolism state. So the importance and the benefits of a carbohydrate metabolism state is from an energy source, brain function, muscle function, glycogen, gluconeogenesis, ATP production, insulin and blood sugar. Carbohydrate intake triggers the release of insulin, which helps regulate blood sugar levels by facilitating glucose uptake into cells. Metabolic processes. Carbohydrate metabolism involved in various metabolic processes, including the synthesis of other important molecules like lipids and proteins. Type 2 diabetes. Understanding carbohydrate metabolism is important for managing conditions like type 2 diabetes, where the body either doesn't produce enough insulin or can't effectively use it, leading to problems with glucose and regulation. Like I mentioned, we have a lot of clients that come to us like are borderline type 2 diabetic, and we improve this by using carbohydrate metabolism and allowing the body to become more glucose sensitive. That is important to know because a lot of people, on my channel have mentioned type 2 diabetes, and insulin, and the importance of understanding the two is that yes, with carbohydrate metabolism, you can improve type 2 diabetes. All right. So another thing I want to outline when it comes to carbohydrate metabolism is something called T3. So what T3 is it's basically a hormone in your thyroid. T4 gets transferred into T3. T3 is the active form of thyroid hormone. And there is a direct correlation between carbohydrates and T3, right? So in this study, right, effects of caloric restriction and dietary composition of serum T3 and inverse T3 in men, subjects receiving no carbohydrate hypocaloric diets for 2 weeks demonstrated a similar 47% decline in serum T3, 47% decline of the active thyroid hormone. We conclude that dietary carbohydrate is an important regulating factor in T3 production in men. So, why I'm outlining this is that, one, carbohydrate metabolism state is what your body prefers. It's going to allow you to have more sustainability, have more flexibility, and it's going to allow your body to improve insulin sensitivity. So, at the end of the day, like we said, what matters at the end of the day is overall weight loss. Weight loss is going to improve everything, yes, but why I show you this is for healthy, lean individuals, guys who want to get to a next level physique, or even guys who want to just lose weight, is that we don't need to be scared of insulin. We just need to know how much to eat. And why I want to outline this is because I'm actually going to give you some key concepts and to takeaways that will literally help you make progress this week, okay? So here's the key takeaways. I want you to take your current calories. So if you don't know what your current calories are at, that's your first problem. You need to find out where your current calories are at because that is the first problem we need to solve. But if you know where your calories are at, I want you to take your protein times 1.2 times your body weight. If you are obese and if you're overweight, do 1 pound times lean muscle tissue. So example would be, guy comes to us, 275 pounds, overweight individual. I always start him off right at 225 protein, right? That's just, we're doing this for as long as I have. That's a good starting point for protein for an overweight individual. I don't ever go over 250 grams of protein for any of my clients, okay? So whether you're 225 pounds or 235 pounds, you don't need to be going over 250 grams of protein. 0.3 times your body weight in fat, okay? So if you are obese, you could probably lower this even a little bit more, okay? So if you're 275 pounds, I would start anywhere from 60 to 70 grams of fat. And that's just right off the top of my head for doing this as long as I have. But I want you to actually take the rest and fill them with carbs because we're transitioning your body into a carbohydrate metabolism state. So we have your starting calories, your starting protein, and your starting fat goal, all right? So how we find your starting carb goal is, one, your the calories per gram of protein is 4. So take the protein goal times 4, and then calories for fat is 9, right? So take your fat goal times 9. Add those two up, add the protein and the fat up, and then subtract those from your starting calories. So you will get a number, and that's going to be your calories of carbohydrates. Calories of carbohydrates. So I want you to take the calories of your carbohydrates and divide them by 4 because there's 4 calories per gram of carbohydrates. And you get your starting carbohydrates. And then wait for 2 weeks. Don't do anything for 2 weeks. Nail those on the gram. I think that's the most important factor is that you nail these on the gram. But wait for 2 weeks and just let your body transition, right? Give it that 2 to 3 week transitionary period where the body starts to transition into a more carbohydrate metabolism state. And, I'm actually going to show you this because we did this exact thing with one of our clients, and his name's Mike. He was pre-diabetic, right? He came to us. He is now 57 pounds down as of this week, right? He was 249, and now he is 192 as of this week. We raised him up in calories using carbohydrate metabolism. He lost 25 pounds eating 1,300 more calories. We lowered his food back down, and he lost another 32. I think that's the math. But he's 192 using this concept of carbohydrate metabolism. Friday, I'm going to do a case study video. I'm going to break down this entire process for you in general. And everything that we kind of covered today, I want to put it into an actual key concept for you in a good takeaway video, okay? So make sure to turn my bell notifications on to get the video on Friday because I'm going to break everything down for you and just try to teach you guys everything that I know. So first of all, like, comment, subscribe to this video. Turn my bell notifications on so you get that video on Friday. Do not miss it. And then, let me know what you guys else want to hear because the subscribers on my channel are crushing it right now. You guys are very, very in tune with the channel, and I appreciate the hell out of you. So if you guys want to hear anything in general, make sure to put it in the comment section. More than happy to help out because this whole channel is designed for the viewers, for the subscribers, to help you guys and to just educate you guys with everything that I know. So like, comment, subscribe on this video. Don't forget to, and then turn on the bell notifications on so you do not miss the next video on Friday.